Please be seated so that we can start the luncheon panel. My name is Jeremy Wu, and Michael Lin here with both members of the Committee of 100. And we would like to welcome you to the luncheon panel this afternoon on Asian Pacific Americans in public service. I just checked with Michael. I think together, Michael and I put in more than 60 years in the public service in the federal government. Washington is a town of government and nonprofit organizations. As a nation, there are more than 2 million federal civilian employees, thousands in elected and appointed officials, and 18 million in state and local government, not to mention the several million in military service as well as in the reserve. Day in and day out, these individuals dedicated their careers, their lives, to servicing the nation and its people. Asian Pacific Americans play a particularly significant role in the public service, and yet we seldom know about the stories. Today, we're very proud to have a very distinguished panel to give you a view of the Asian Pacific Americans in the public service. Let me at this point turn over to Michael to introduce our distinguished moderator.
Thank you, Jeremy. Before I introduce our moderator, Mr. Chon Podesta, I'd just like to add my welcome to all of you to this APA, Asian Pacific Americans in Public Service. And I also like to take this opportunity to encourage all of you, at some point in your lifetime, share your talents to serve the people, okay? And the reason I had the credential to say that is that I spent 30-some years at NIH myself, that's National Institutes of Health, and just to be able to be a part of that tremendous biomedical progress, that itself is rewarding, although most of the time we are overworked, underpaid, but nobody notices it. So anyway, so certainly would encourage you to do that. And let me introduce our moderator, Chon Podesta. And I'm not going to read the bio that in the book that you can look at it. And currently he's the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress. It's an organization to make sure that we, as a nation, have a progressive policy so we'll be heading in the right direction. He served in several capacities, almost during all 8 years under Clinton administrations, served several capacities at the White House. And at the end, he was the chief of staff to President Clinton. And I want to take this opportunity to thank him in particular for one thing, more than one thing, but that's one thing I want to mention. If you recall, Bill and Lee's appointment was held up in the Senate during that period of time. John was the one at the White House, lend his hand, support us, make sure that Bill and Lee was appointed during the recess, and then he was the first Chinese American Assistant Attorney General heading the Civil Rights Division, and that was quite historic. So John, thank you very much for that. Another thing I want to mention is that he also served as a co-chair of the President Obama's transition team. Suffice to say, if you look at the number of Asian American appointed to the cabinet level, we owe him a big thanks also. Thank you very much. And that thanks. And Chris Liu has a lot to do with that, and we really appreciate it very much for that. So with that brief introduction, Chon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael. And I think this is working a little too well. I think they've got this one down. Thank you very much, Michael, for the introduction, and Jeremy for inviting me here today. I want to thank the Committee of 100 for letting me be an honorary Asian American here this afternoon. My family is actually Genovese, and so Christopher Columbus was trying to find Asia, and instead he found the Americas, so maybe it's somehow fitting that I get to host this panel here today. We've got a rock star group of panelists gathered together, and I'm certain we're in for a lively conversation about public service. I think it's an amazing moment in America today, in American history today. I was thinking back to the fact that it's, and it's a little bit hard to believe that it was only 9 years ago that President Clinton appointed the first Asian American, Secretary Norman Netta, to the cabinet. And yesterday, Chris convened the entire cabinet for the first time with President Obama. And sitting around that table, of course, was Dr. Stephen Chu, General Eric Shinseki, and Governor Gary Locke, representing not only Asian Americans, but the best of service in our country. And it's not obviously just in the cabinet that we see Asian Americans today. The Chief Performance Officer for the government, the Chief Technology Officer for the government, obviously the Cabinet Secretary, who we're so grateful to have with us today, the White House Office on Health Reform, the legal advisor to the State Department, the General Counsel at the Department of Health and at the Department of Homeland Security. Clearly, I think our country is breaking down divisions, and nothing, I think, could be more emblematic of that than the election of President Obama and the campaign that President Obama ran. And if you look across the resumes of those people, they came from very, very different backgrounds to public service, from laboratories, from military service, from high-tech businesses, from the law, and they found their way to, I think, give something back to America. I'm going to let the other panelists speak for themselves, but from my own experience, I could say one thing: the route to public service is rarely a straight line. In fact, more often than not, those of us in the public sphere who have engaged and led and had careers in public service seem to jump from A to Z and back before ever making it to B. There's never one straight path forward. Personally, my route took me from litigating in eastern Kentucky to being the general counsel of the Senate Agriculture Committee, to building a small business, to the West Wing of the White House, to President Obama's transition team, to finally the think tank that I run, the Center for American Progress. My wife, of course, accuses me of not being able to hold a job, but I like to think that I found an exciting way to lead my career. People sometimes ask me when I'm out speaking, how do you get to be the White House Chief of Staff? That's something I aspire to, especially after the West Wing was on television. And I often tell them that perhaps the most direct way is to follow the path of one of my predecessors, which is to have the foresight to go to kindergarten with the future President of the United States. Of course, in my case, I attribute to the fact that no matter how many times I got hit in the face, I was too dumb to fall down. And people in this panel clearly are pretty smart, and I think they'll agree with me on this. There's never been a better time in which to enter public service. Just a few weeks ago, on April 21st, President Obama signed into law the Edward M. Kennedy Serve America Act, which will devote $5.7 billion towards increasing volunteer work and public service in our country. That bill reflects the enthusiasm towards service we're seeing sweeping the country, particularly amongst young people, the kinds of activity that we saw not just in the campaign but in communities around the country. More and more we're witnessing a flood of Americans from all ages, religions, and creeds making the decision to serve their country. We're seeing this interest here in Washington, where working in government seems honorable once again, but more importantly, in every corner of our country and the world, from the military service being rendered by our troops abroad to AmeriCorps, to the Peace Corps, to aiding local communities. We're seeing people engaged again in public service. I know we're all excited to get the conversation rolling.